Well, welcome everyone today to Measuring Impact Beyond Student Savings. This is brought to you by the Community College Consortium for OER, CCC OER. The next slide, please. We offer professional development, such as webinars that highlight best practices and emerging trends. You can join the CCOER listserv to stay connected and informed, sharing events, resources, policy, and research. We make connections and facilitate project collaborations with our members and form partnerships to engage the community through advocacy and projects. So just to get warmed up and thinking about what we're going to discuss today, I wanted to know what type of statistics do you find helpful in advocating for time and support for open work at your institutions? And feel free just to pop it into the chat. I'll give everybody a minute or so to do that. Percentage of students affected by OER in the classroom. Yes, right now we need more info than cost savings. Student surveys. Time to completion rate, seeing lots of really, really great things here. Awesome. Maybe we could move on to the next slide. So in the fall, we hosted a webinar, and through that webinar, it was determined that one of the biggest blocks to OER adoption and development was time and wraparound supports. And in order to advocate for time, it's helpful to have statistics that measure the impact on students, similar to what we're seeing in the chat. And while we largely focus on student savings as a point of access, this isn't always enough, and often student savings is underreported. With that in mind, I bring you to our agenda today. So today we have three presenters here who are going to share dashboards from three open publishing platforms. They're going to describe how the open platforms are accessed and used. They're going to demonstrate the statistics that are available to you and describe how they leverage statistics for open advocacy. And then we'll have some time for Q&A, but please feel that you can populate that into the chat at any time. And then we're going to crowdsource you to see what other types of ideas you might have after what you see. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to our presenters to go in the order that's on the screen here to just introduce themselves and what they do at their institution. So we'll start with Bailey.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bailey Lake, and I am from Eastern Kentucky University, where I work as the Open Strategies Librarian.
Thank you, Bailey. Siri?
Hi, my name's Siri Gauthier. I'm one of the librarians here at eCampus Ontario's Open Library, responsible for our publishing platforms. So nice to see everyone today.
And Justin.
Hello, I'm Justin, and I am joining you from Michigan right now, although LibreText is founded out of California. And I am the Director of Curriculum Innovation and Development there for about a year now.
Excellent. Thank you, Justin. And I'm Kimberly Carter. I'm the OER consultant at Conestoga College in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, and I lead the open learning team at Conestoga, but I'm also a proud member of the CCOER PD committee who helps put these webinars together for you. All right, so I'm now going to turn it over to Bailey to talk to us a little bit about Manifold and how it's used at her institution.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here today, and thank you all for coming. Just a little bit of background about my university. So Eastern Kentucky University is a regional comprehensive with a little over 14,000 students. We have a small but mighty cohort of OER champions from several different disciplines across campus. In 2019, we published our first OER from the African Studies Department at our college. And then we applied and were awarded a grant from our Board of Regents program to create a learning community and support a few more faculty OER projects. So OER was really flourishing on our campus until in 2021, the university announced an inclusive access program called Booksmart. And it really put us in a very unique position. Our program is unique. So our inclusive access program is really different. And please let me know if anyone has a program similar to this, because I'd love to hear what your librarians are doing about OER. But Booksmart is inclusive access, but it is billed to the university instead of billing the students directly. So the university pays for Booksmart, and therefore we can put in all of our marketing materials free textbooks for all. However, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is, right? In my opinion, students are still paying for this program. It's just the fees are more hidden, right? Additionally, some materials aren't covered by the program, so students have to purchase them anyway. And there's a lot of confusion about how to access print versions versus online versions. And also, Barnes & Noble is double dipping a bit because the university pays for books that some students never pick up. And then additionally, if students do not return their books at the end of the semester, the students are billed again for those same course materials. However, faculty have the perception that the books are free to the students. And so OER cost savings as an argument sort of goes out the window for us. Because before Booksmart, EKU had a thriving OER program, but now faculty, they do care about saving students money, but after Booksmart, all the time and effort that goes into creating, adopting, or adapting OER just doesn't seem worth it because you can't say, look, we're saving students money. So we still have an OER publishing program, and we have some excellent faculty champions who support us, but every argument that I make has to be outside the cost piece. So I frame every argument with, Booksmart is good, but OER is so much better. Yeah, so that's a little bit of background, and here's how OER is better. And I go into pedagogy and all that stuff. Any questions about the EKU program so far? I'm going to share my screen. So in 2022, EKU joined the Open Education Network Manifold pilot, which gives us access to the platform that I'm going to show you today. So access to platforms like Manifold, Pressbooks, LibreText has been huge for our OER program because it has allowed us to move away from Bepress, which is a PDF-based platform that requires students to download books before they even view it. Manifold is much better because it offers multiple file types, it has an online reader, and it has vastly improved accessibility functioning over a PDF-only version. Okay, and I'm going to share. Hold on 1 second, sorry. There it is. So sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. Okay. Now, can everyone see my screen? Okay. So this is our Eastern Kentucky University Manifold collection. It is a great feature of the OEN Manifold access. It allows us to point directly to everything that we as university have published. And I am going to go into our admin mode. Oh, maybe. Okay, so this is the back end of our Manifold instance. EKU currently has 12 projects in here. 8 have been published, 2 are sandboxes, and 2 we are actively working on. So the first OER that I was involved in publishing is Accessible Appalachia, which is a collection of chapters on important topics from authors all over the region. And because it has been published the longest, it has the most stats. So this is the one we're going to dive into today. Manifold is actually very intentional with the analytics that it keeps. It has a built-in analytics reporting system that functions independent of Google and other third-party providers. So this approach is founded in privacy while striving to provide meaningful usage and reporting data. So there is no connection in stored data between specific user events and specific user accounts. So the system is intentionally designed so it's impossible to track an individual's user activity. As part of that effort, the system masks IP addresses so that the IP of users is not maintained in Manifold, and so it is not part of analytics reporting. Manifold uses tokens, so you have one token that is tied to the user's browser and one token to the instance's domain. And so the visitor token expires after 365 days, so it's good for a year, and the visit token expires after 1 day. So if the same visitor visits on Monday and on Tuesday, that is the same visit, okay? Manifold is a relatively new publishing platform, and there are more analytics coming. They are working on things like amount of time spent in each chapter and tracking the types of devices that people are using to access our OER. But for now, this is the outermost layer for statistics for the entire book. So you can adjust this range to anything that you want it to be. The default is a 1 month setting. But if we wanted to look at maybe everything that has happened in 2025, we can change the range and see that there have been 311 unique visitors in 4 months and 14 days. But I like to look at since publication, sort of a broader look. So this book was published in March of 2024. And since publication, we have had 611 unique visitors. So for a small university tucked in the hills of Kentucky, that's really good, especially for this such a niche subject. The annotations is the next thing we'll look at. So to make an annotation, we can go, well, here, if you go to the front-facing part of the text and highlight any, say let's say you want to remember this, you can highlight any of that, click annotate, create your own notes. This is huge for students to take notes as they read. You can put your annotation in your private annotations, or you can put it in any reading group that you're a part of. So a potential use for this is a faculty member can create their own reading group, and then everyone in the class will be able to see the annotations that students make. And I think that's a very powerful pedagogical piece that Manifold offers, and it is tracked within the analytics. So there have been 62 annotations of Accessible Appalachia. 61 have been private and 1 have been in a reading group. And you as the professor can track this as well, which I think is very handy. Highlights are similar. If you want to take note of this sentence, you can click highlight. And then for me on my Manifold account, this will always be highlighted. And this is also a great tool for students. And the stars function is just this star up here, and this adds it to your personal Manifold account and makes it easier to come back to. Okay. All right. So Manifold has layers. So if we were interested in adding a sequel to Accessible Appalachia, this is sort of text 1, and this could be Accessible Appalachia 2 down here, and both of these would keep separate statistics. So we can go into this specific text, and it's going to bring us right to the analytics page. And again, we have the start date and end date. And because we only have one text in here so far, if we go to our publication date, it will give us a very similar graph, right? Okay, the one other thing I want to mention, so shares are also within this highlighted section. And this is sort of a funny analytic because it only measures the clicking of this very specific link. And this link will take you to a specific place within the book. So we only have one of those, but this does not measure sharing the entire book. It does not measure if you grab the URL from the browser, all those things. The most interesting in this part are the text section views, which breaks the OER down into chapters and shows which one has been accessed most frequently. And this is a great heat map that demonstrates, where the interest is, how students are actually using the book. The introduction is the largest, but that's where the read online link takes you. So that is pretty expected. The second highest chapter is the making of Appalachian music. And it is followed by chapter 9, which is lovingly referred to as the moonshine chapter, which also makes sense because it is kind of an exciting topic. It also shows, I learned from this, that the index has a whopping 36 views. And that tells me that an index is probably not necessary for this type of publication. And it was definitely not worth the enormous amount of work that me and the editor put into it, to creating it. So, all right.
So Bailey, I have a question for you.
Yeah, let me stop sharing.
No
Quick.
problem. So when you talked at the beginning about how important it is to share outside of student savings. So how has a conversation gone with someone where you've been able to convince them why this is more important than the student savings piece? Do you have?
Yeah, of course. Hold on. I'm having all kinds of trouble with Zoom today. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, there it is. It's way over on my other monitor. That's why. Okay,
No worries.
I'm back. So, so first and most basically, in every blog post, in every promotion email where I'm talking about a specific OER, I include a sentence like, since publication, Accessible Appalachia has reached 611 unique users. I find this is just a great line to really explain the reach that's possible when you publish with OER. And then anytime I present to faculty about OER platform options, I show them the analytics page, and I talk especially about the potential for the reading groups and that function and how that could fit into a class, and also how the annotations and highlights can serve as that heat map for topics students are most interested in, maybe where they're confused, how they're engaging with the text. And then Accessible Appalachia specifically was a sabbatical project that the editor, Lisa Day, was able to present in our sabbatical showcase. So, and she was able to say that at that time, the OER had reached 521 unique viewers. And now in EKU's Appalachian Studies program is not even a full major. It's a minor and a certificate. So without publishing this textbook as an OER, through the Open Education Network, there's no way that many users would have been reached. And then one new idea that I'm working on, I'm going to work on this summer, is to implement 1-year publication anniversary emails so that I could send that out to the author to share with their college, or even to the entire university, hopefully, that just says congratulations, and compile some of these statistics and say, look how your book's doing, look at the impact you've made. Yeah, so that is one of my super fun summer projects. Does anyone have any questions?
That sounds like a super fun project to me too. Impact stats are so very important.
Yes.
Excellent. So there aren't any questions in the chat at the moment, but I'm sure wheels are turning. So maybe at this time, we'll now pass it over to Siri to demonstrate what she's bringing for our webinar today.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm joining from eCampus Ontario. So a little bit of context about us. We're a nonprofit here in Ontario, Canada, and we provide a variety of supports to the post-secondary sector here in Ontario. We're funded by, they've just changed their name. I think it's MCures now. It was formerly Ministry of Colleges and Universities. It's now the Ministry of Colleges, Universities, Research Excellence and Security, I believe. But either way, we're a nonprofit funded by one of the provincial governments here, and we have over 50 members here in Ontario. So all of our publicly funded colleges, universities, and Indigenous institutes. So we have a pretty wide range of folks. So I'm actually going to go ahead and share my screen. Just confirming everyone can see it. And then, yeah, so can everyone see my screen? Just confirming. Cool. So we offer a few publishing tools here at the Open Library. So for creation, we've got Pressbooks, and then we also have our own instance at H5P. But at the moment, we'll just focus in on Pressbooks. So there's a couple different things that we can kind of do and kind of stats that can be shared. I'm going to show you primarily the sort of network administrator level. But I also want to flag that some of this is also available for users. They can administrate their own books. And then also for our network or our institutional admins. So that's for our specific institutions. Some of them have what we call buy-in. So they have a level of access that's a little bit different for that institution in and of itself. So a lot of the views that you'll see here are also replicated or for our institutional admins, and I will take some time to show that. But to sort of get things started, Pressbooks allows a lot of different stats to be used and shared and provided through a Cocoa Analytics dashboard. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just administer the network, and I'm going to just go straight into our stats page, because I think that's probably the meat and potatoes of what people are actually interested in seeing. So this is our network completely overall. You'll notice that data is only available from January 1st, 2022. So we actually started a little bit before that, but by and large, it's a huge chunk of time. So you can still see a lot. And this is just kind of the initial dashboard for the entire network for our institutional members. So for a specific institution like Conestoga, for example, they'll have the exact same page, but limited only to their institution. And this is partially all made possible through the shared network plugin from Pressbooks. eCampus Ontario was involved in the development of this, so we're really happy to have this feature available. But there's quite a bit of stuff that's here. So in this case, we're going to just see the historic here. You can see everything can be sort of time bound, but in this case, we're just going to go for it and have everything available. And you'll see that you can see things like total users, total subscribers, and total collaborators. For an institution, this also means that they can track the growth of usage at their institution. So how many people are actually looking. If, for example, I wanted only total users, I can see here that we've got a pretty steady upward climb. For some institutions, this might be a little bit more drastic. And for others, it might kind of wax and wane depending on how much control that an institutional admin is having to, let's say, delete folks, or if there's a lot of students coming in, if there's a prof that just kind of wants to clear out that, that's totally possible. All of this stuff can be downloaded as a CSV. So in this case, I've already downloaded one, just for the sake of not having to wait for my computer to load. But you'll see here that we actually have it by month, and you can see how many total users there are, subscribers and contributors. And you can see the growth of actual Pressbooks usage throughout the course of whatever time period that you have chosen. Again, in this case, it's for the entire network, but it is possible to have it just for your institution. You'll also see things like books over time, if there's a huge period of cloning, for example, and all of these you can cross on or off just so that they show actually on the graph. But if you like working with Excel or with spreadsheets, you can always download them as a CSV. You'll see user revisions over time. Who does the most revisions at your institution? Is there someone that's really, really involved in helping other folks to do things at the institution? They might not necessarily be publishing in and of themselves, but if you've got someone who's got their fingers in a lot of pies, as OER wise, it might be something worth noting for an institution, and you can reward that person or call them out as like, hey, this person does a lot of revisions and they help a lot with OER. Network storage is something, this one, I personally don't use it super often, but I know for some institutions, it might be of interest to know what the largest book size is. In this case, it's 7 gigs, which is pretty astronomical, actually. I'm realizing maybe this is an interesting stat for me. But you'll also see things like most cloned books. So in this case, we've got one here that's been cloned 385 times, which is a crazy amount. But if we actually go into that, we'll find the list of clones. I can know exactly where it is. But this link in particular, if we want to just check it out, I have already done so. Oh, I have to move the Zoom bar. Oh no. All right, I'll do this quickly. But we can see that it is actually a student notebook, which is kind of fun. So in this case, all the students can go in and download, but we can see things like just knowing that this is something that people are using, right? The fact that we are at the head of a consortium, we have a lot of members here at eCampus. We don't necessarily always know exactly what's going on at an institution, but here I can find out that this is an OER that's being adopted in particular for this course, which is really exciting to find out. And all of these let's go back here. There's also a few other sort of stats that are available, including page views and download data. This you would download as a CSV. So in this case, we've got our network stats here, just confirming folks can see my spreadsheet, which is a fun thing to do in a presentation. But nevertheless, so all of this information is here You'll see it by title, by URL. You also have the dashboard for the analytics itself. So if you want to just go direct to that. And it's all filtered by institution. This again is part of that shared network plugin. So you'll see that they're all flagged by institution. In this case, if someone is coming in like Kim from Conestoga, she would only have things that were listed as Conestoga College. But because I'm the network admin, I see everyone in our network specifically. But you'll see things like page views, direct views, if there's a referrer, visitors, downloads, and then by format as well, because Pressbooks does allow a variety of formats, including downloads for EPUBs, PDFs, XHTML, and XML. And I believe this one is a common cartridge. So you can see all of the downloads there. Very, very useful. And then this is kind of also a thing that you can see for analytics. So if you want it as a CSV, you can have that. But if you're interested in seeing it a little bit more visually, this is just the analytics for our network in and of itself. And this is very similar to what you see for a book at a book level. But again, you can pick the time and you'll see which pages are most viewed and where the referrers are coming from. And just to showcase that at actual book level, so this is our micro-credential toolkit, a little bit of free promo, I guess, for our micro-credential team. But this is just one of the books that we own. And you'll see here that this dashboard is available. And I can check as one of the admins, and the administrators and the owners of the book can also discover, again, similar visitors, page views, where are they actually looking. I really loved Bailey's term hotspots of like where people are actually looking, because that's exactly what it is. And the nice thing here for Pressbooks is that if you wanted to, for every book as an author, you could choose to have this dashboard actually be publicly accessible. So this would be a way to showcase your impact stats as a creator and say, hey, this is a thing that's happening, folks can see it. And then you'll actually notice that on this book here, Building a Medical Terminology Foundation, you'll recognize one of the authors, but you can actually see the usage statistics for this book. So in this case, this is a collaboration between Georgian, Conestoga, and Sheridan, 3 of our members. This means that by having the usage stats widely available and just accessible for folks to just click on, you don't necessarily have to go and contact someone to be like, hey, author of this book, can you send me the usage stats for this period? I'm looking for reporting. So this just allows folks to share it kind of broadly, which is really exciting and enables a lot more uses. I know some institutions within our network are also sharing where the referrers are coming from. I know they've created maps based off of the URL, so they can kind of show, broadly speaking, this is the global impact that we have for this OER, for this creation tool, or for this particular resource. And it's very, very beneficial to be able to showcase the actual impact of a specific OER. And again, for our institutions, for some of them, I don't want to relaunch now. So in this case, just very, very quickly, this is the view for, let's say, Trent University, and the same stats are available here. But again, this is filtered only for Trent University. So as I said, you can see something like the fact that there was a huge spike in users. So we went from, oh, my mouse is not working, 500 to 754 over the course of a month. That's a pretty drastic increase. So that might be a time to kind of question and wonder what's going on. And you'll see things, books over time. Again, most clone books, we've got that student book there that I had already showed. And all of this is downloadable by CSV and available to all of our member institutions. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. But for our member institutions, this is just a thing that is available to them. And for the institutions that don't have sort of buy-in, these are stats that we're happy to share. I can just go in and export, and then folks can contact us and use this to advocate for the impact of the things that they are creating.
Thank you, Siri. So as a member institution, I can't celebrate enough having those statistics to speak to my leadership team. There are a lot of questions for everyone, so I might hold those till the end to make sure that Justin gets opportunity to share. I do see one specifically for Siri, so I just want to address that one. Missed how you get to the stats page. Is that a network admin tool? And at the individual user level, we can only see analytics. So she missed how you got to the
Yeah,
stats page.
so for the stats page, that is only an admin tool, so seeing it at a broad level. So that's for our network admins, and then for some of our institutional admins. So again, those are specific member institutions that have basically bought into the Pressbooks instance. So in this case, the individual user level, yeah, you can only see analytics, but I believe you can also export that for yourself if you wanted to. But I
And
would
then,
that.
sorry, I think the next question is for you as well, Siri. What was the name of the plugin?
So Pressbooks uses Coco Analytics, so that's KOKO Analytics.
Excellent. So I'll save the question for all three till the end, and I will move over to Justin.
Thanks. All right. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to start off with a quick little overview because I think the other ones have talked a lot about books, and LibreText were an awful lot more than just a textbook publishing platform. We are a library of open educational resources, including 3,000 plus textbooks, but we're also a learning platform, basically a one-stop shop for everything to do with teaching in your classroom. And we're emphasizing where the curatorial is something that we use quite often, meaning we're not just a place for you to put your materials and to share your materials, but also faculty and experienced professors in our team that want to help you curate materials and work together as a community to build things. So right now we have 3,000 textbooks, over 75 LibreNet members institutions. So membership is the only thing that costs at the institutional level ever. That's just if you want to be more integrated into us. We have larger institutions that are collaborators, for instance, ASCCC in California, Harley in Illinois, KBOR in Kansas. And we have also a repository of OER homework questions, including H5P, authoring, and a library, and then a lot of other materials that can be built to that. Those are all accessible OER materials. So talking about analytics for this is a really complicated and large thing, but obviously we have a lot of different platforms to go through, and we kind of have started to move towards a more project management system type of a thing, because we really are emphasizing these 4 different areas of, yes, we have content, but we're also a technology development company that works with faculty to build technology. We also develop new tools and pedagogies, and we also are a professional development group with training as well. And we've been around since 2008. Our first iteration was ChemWiki, moved to STEMWiki, and we became LibreText. So we have a long history of working with faculty and started by faculty. And I did want to say, I'm sharing all of these with a Creative Commons license, so that if you ever see anything in here you want to use, I think they're going to make these slides available to you as well. We have a bunch of different things, and one of the questions I was asked to talk about with this talk was, where do people access these things? So we do have our Adapt homework system. We do have the Forge, which is our analytical approach to writing. So writing analytics, how do people write? How do they engage with curriculum? And then Jupyter Notebooks, which are for coding and data analysis and large data sets. So those are things that are used in the classroom, as well as the library of all of our textbook materials, as well as learning objects that we curate as well. So there's a lot of different aspects that we utilize with faculty. Our libraries themselves are broken down into bookshelves, which I think is a lot of what you've seen here so far, which are generic books that can be used in any classroom across the country that teaches similar things, where you'd usually say, I'm going to use chapter 3, but maybe skip chapter 4, go on to chapter 5. Our campus bookshelves are ones that have been curated or remixed to include only material that instructor wants for a class at that campus. So you reduce that cognitive load to really improve the student outcomes for that learning there. And then we also have learning objects. So those would be like laboratories or case studies or other ancillary materials that might go along with your course materials as well, that you might want to share outside of a textbook, but could be incorporated into a campus textbook, for instance. So just giving some general numbers, we have almost 3 million page views a month, or these are weekly. For our bookshelves, those are the books that are generically available for anybody, and they can just use them off the shelf. Campus-specific audiences, we're reaching about 100,000 page views a week, and our supplemental materials are about 64,000 page views a week. So we have a lot of data that is available to instructors, and we try to work with faculty to get that data whenever they need it for different things. I thought it would be interesting just to see what type of traffic drives things to LibreText. So you can see the type of impact that we have on a global scale. Like I said, we do have 3,000 textbooks. We have over 390 campuses across the world, but mostly in the US and Canada, that have customized books that have been remixed from other books and sections throughout the libraries. A lot of those are interdisciplinary books that come from different libraries into one single book. We get a lot of our traffic, obviously, about 3/4 of it from search engines, but we have a lot of direct traffic proportionally to a lot of other places that comes directly from Canvas or OER repositories, things that will link directly to our resources for teaching. And again, I'm dialing that with a little chalkboard indicator there. And we've been getting an increasing amount of traffic that's coming to us from ChatGPT, Perplexity, these other AI type of tools that are helping students, or at least being a place that students are going to, but at least then they have a reference back to something that our largest refers. Number 1 is ChatGPT. Number 2 is University of Minnesota Center for Open Education repository. Number 3 is Canvas instances from different schools across the country and in Canada. And those ones are either through embedded the books right into their Canvas instances or through our Adapt homework system integration that links out to our books as well. And coming in at number 4 is another AI, Gemini. I think it's really interesting that the next 3 are all purpose-built course room materials that are integrating our books into their classroom and then directly linking out to us. As you can see at the top, we've got 24 million views in the last year. So it's a very large use in disseminating. That's going to become important in a minute. Because what we do typically is we ask faculty to integrate with us, meaning let's be collaborative about this. What are your goals? What are you looking for? And then talk to us about it. And then we are also faculty. I've taught for over a decade. Everyone on the team has worked in an academic institution. And a lot of us are researchers. My background, for instance, in chemistry education research, specializing in how to design online textbooks. That was what I've been part of my PhD on. So this was actually a slide of data that we've gotten for one of our instructors who works in Spanish. This is Christina Moon at Chabot College in California. She helped us design a lot of materials for Spanish, which is our #1 course in homework using our ADAPT system. So we have over 580 ADAPT courses. 296 of those are from Spanish classes. This data is a little bit outdated. And their projects that they've used us as a tool to disseminate their materials and grow the Spanish community was 2 different projects for Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. They've created over 2,200 activities. And then we give them this data so they can report it back to the granting agencies, whether they're internal or external funded, to be able to build up more and more tools for everyone to be able to use. And in case you're curious, the second highest use is chemistry, which is where this project all started from years ago. And if there's any chemists in the room, I'm sure that you've stumbled across people who've used our textbook quite often. And that's because what I want to go back to is that curatory emphasis that we have at LibreText, which is we start off with teaching and learning and evaluating materials. And you have 2 choices. You can originally decide to publish something that will match what you need, or what we encourage people to do instead to save their time and energy. And because a lot of good material does exist, we don't really teach in an island. So we want to inform a customization and refinement and collaborative authorship towards new materials that will match your needs. But whether you create from scratch, which we definitely have faculty do, or you customize, remix, and refine existing materials, those can all be published into that OER library of materials, which then can be adopted to people. And to facilitate that loop, that closing the loop that if you're in education research studies, you're always talking about trying to do, we've really moved towards a conductor basis. So this is where I'm going to break off a little bit and take a look at some of our analytical stuff. Faculty will start off in the conductor project. That's our project management system, which we've built to facilitate all these tools and resources for faculty to be able to use. Some things I'll just kind of bring up real quick because I don't want to take too much. We have our Campus Commons where you can access some adoption reports and peer reviews so that faculty and students can submit peer reviews of their textbooks. This is the example of all of our different projects that I'm working on. We also have, sorry, I'm jumping a lot around here. We have our AI co-authoring tools, but then we also have other tools for tracking all the peer reviews that people get, timelines for editing routines, and team membership, who's allowed to author, who's allowed to audit your materials, and then collaboratively build those things. From the control panel, you can see adoption reports to see if anybody's adopting your book and they submit those reports. And you can also look at our analytics requests. So we do have requests that faculty say, hey, this is the data that I would like to have. We have those coming through on a monthly basis, and we pull that data together. Here's some examples of ones from adoption reports of a whole bunch of different books. They are allowed to give feedback to say why they like the book, what they'd like to choose to do better. That informs the authoring team to how to make the book better as well. And students or instructors can do that depending on who they are. And we can get those analytics requests, which most of them have been done. We only have a few lagging behind there. So that kind of information helps faculty to continue to improve their books, but also to get more support for the work that they're doing. And an example is a peer review. So we actually use the Open Textbook Library from BC Campus as the formative type of text review. We adopted that for our own peer review. So you can see the peer reviews right there, how it looks for a student. And within the conductor, you can actually invite reviewers to come and review your book. So we're trying to influence that academic aspect of publishing and making these peer reviewed and making these efforts really more a scholarly work that has always been a scholarly work, but be more representative of a traditional scholarly work. So scholarly impact, building that brand, impacting communities. We are currently working on we use Matomo. And Matomo is an analytics service that we incorporate into all of our websites. We can get all that data and gather it. And we are currently working to build that so that instructors have direct access to at least the widgets that are related to their book for the basic types of analytical materials that you'd use before. For right now, you reach out, you ask us, you can submit a request and we can help you out with that. For instance, this is PGCC, Prince George Community College. Chemistry for Engineers had over 700,000 page views. You can see over time how that's been growing over decades. And really what we wanted to emphasize here is that that brand builds the reputation of the college as well as the faculty, and it encourages more and more collaborative efforts. So that you can see in fall 21, a spin-off faculty member made another version of this book, and that grew the amounts even more. So we're getting more and more people using that, which can inform data, which is data that can inform stakeholders, which then can inform administrators of what the priorities should be. Another person has worked with us to build a whole library of H5P materials for microbiology. This is Ying Liu, and she took a whole sabbatical, worked with a bunch of students, and got support in order to build all these interactive materials for this book, and is now working on revamping that textbook to match the types of efforts that she's going through. And these are some things that she's actually told us that she wants us to be able to provide to help her to get that grant funding. So we have tons and tons of grants that have gone through LibreText. One big reason for that is it's hard to disseminate. Anyone who's written any educational grant will test for efficacy in their classroom and say you should be able to do this, but then you create a page on your website that's internally accessed, hard to find. If it's part of LibreText, we have all those materials that are all OER, and that can disseminate widely very quickly, which helps get the grant money and then also helps to display how it's incorporating back into the community and building that infrastructure across the whole community. I'm not going to go through all those details there, but each of those things has a different goal. Supporting equity, we've had research that's been done that shows that OER use in campuses actually does improve equity across different types of learners. It encourages collaboration and scaling. We work with a lot of small grants that have grown into large institutional processes. And we keep seeing that kind of growth all the time. I head up the LibreText Academy, which has ongoing groups of cohorts from across the country building new textbooks and collaborations across the whole entire space and the departments that can span anywhere, really. I'm going to show one other thing real quick, and then I'll be done. So I just did a quick little Google Scholar search just to kind of show you that LibreText is extremely popular as a dissemination tool for a lot of research. And it's also a place to house OER materials that get used in efficacy studies. So a lot of the work that would go into building a new study as a faculty member and how this impacts student learning, if you start off with this has already been done with LibreText in a classroom, then that builds the argument for that being a platform that you don't need to test and interrogate your platform in order to show that the platform is a viable way to introduce things into a campus or into a classroom in a meaningful way. I kind of ran through a lot of things there, but I wanted to...
Thank you, Justin. There is one specific question for you. It says, Yang is asking, would I be able to upload educational simulations that are in WebGL format to LibreText?
Very likely, if you own the copyright or you're willing to open it to OER, then we work with a lot of faculty to house many different things. We work with MoleView to have molecular viewing structures. We have a lot of interactives that we can host on our servers. We work with faculty in a way to build whatever is useful for you, we find will be useful for anybody. So I would just send an email to kind of like talk with us. We do lots of iframing and other things that can incorporate those things. We embed everything. Our homework can be embedded. Our H5Ps can be embedded. Anything can be embedded into our book to try to make it a streamlined learning experience for those students.
Thank you. I'm now going to go back and work through the questions that were for all presenters, and I'm thinking that we'll go in the same order that you presented. So Bailey, we'll start with you with the first question. How did your institution decide on which publication platform to adopt?
So EKU has access to both Manifold and Pressbooks, and it really depends on what the faculty member is looking for when we decide which of those to use. I'll reiterate, we started with Bepress. So before my time, they had just PDF. So there has been a lot of trial and error, a lot of research, but we find that Pressbooks and Manifold cover most of our needs. We also have access to Kedi, which is a textbook authoring platform as well, but you do have to post that somewhere. So you have to move that to the Pressbooks directory or to Manifold's directory.
Thank you, Bailey. I'll pose the same question to Siri.
Yeah, so for deciding on which platform to adopt, that was before my time, unfortunately. So I don't actually know the sort of history behind the exact decision. But eCampus has always wanted to support higher education in Ontario and open education in Ontario. So creating and allowing publication platforms providing access to publication platforms across all of our member institutions has always been a priority, and making sure that they have the tools they need to make incredible educational resources and experiences. So I don't have specifics, but it's part of our mandate to provide these tools.
Well, that's awesome. And as a member institution, I would say we adopt Pressbooks because it's provided as an instance through eCampus Ontario. Justin, I'm not sure if the question is for you, but please feel free to jump in with something.
I've been a professor for many years at many institutions as well. I would say that the most common response that we get, and the reason why my faculty have always chosen LibreText, is that it's free, and it's completely free for the institutions, and our homework system is embedded, and that one's also free for anyone in California, and only $15 for everyone elsewhere. So you really get a comprehensive package. And then the other one that I see the most often is when your institution stops having some platform that's paid for by the institution, then you have a lot of work to kind of rescue your materials. And we've been around for over 14 years and haven't changed our access at all.
Thank you. That was awesome. Thanks for that answer. Next question. Do any of your institutions use adoption reports from other institutions? I see that as strong evidence of impact, but it can be challenging to know where a given OER is adopted. There was lots of upvoting here as well to this question.
Yeah, that would be great. It is such a strong evidence of impact and metric. I have looked into, the only thing that we have considered thus far is adding actually just a Google form to our OER, which I know Anne-Marie has done that because I've looked at her examples. She's the one who asked the question, but that is just like a self-reporting feature that we could add to Manifold that I think is a great idea, and we'll hopefully I'll be able to work on that in the near future, but largely no.
Okay, Siri, same question.
Yeah, so I just want to flag that we actually collect impact stats, not necessarily only for the things that are through our Pressbooks instance. We also have a repository of resources. So to get to the question of using adoption reports from other institutions, yes, we love them. We love getting adoption reports, and that's for our entire collection, not just the things that are in our Pressbooks instance. So we have a full adoption report form that folks can fill out on our website, and that actually trickles down to impact stats. So we do calculate things like total student savings, but we also have them parsed out by institution. So we can see which institutions are adopting, how many students are impacted, how many reports we're receiving, and then where folks are downloading from. So on our website, I don't know if I'm allowed to share links in the chat directing people to our impact page, but awesome. Okay, I will share that then. So we do actually have like a full map of downloads, so we can see where people are kind of using things, and how many course sections are being impacted, how many educators. And this is not necessarily only for Ontario. We welcome and we love getting adoption reports from anywhere and everywhere if they're using something that has been in the open library. And that also includes everything that's Pressbooks related. So we got a lot. And yes, please give us your adoption reports from anywhere, basically.
Excellent. And Justin, same question.
Yeah, I've mentioned that we do have tons and tons of adoption reports, and we know for a fact that a lot of people don't even register for our site that use them in their classrooms. I've met many people at conferences who didn't even know that you could register for LibreText. So we know that the usage is a lot broader, and one of our goals is actually to try to encourage people to submit those adoption reports. But we do get those a lot, and obviously we're used by millions of people. So things are being used everywhere.
Awesome. And I'm going to pick up a little bit. There's a few more questions here. Suppose there is a library in an institution and they want to adapt one of your open textbooks and upload it to their own repository. How do you share with them an editable version when downloaded? Is it not available option, or is it available only in PDF?
So for all of our OER, we ask the authors to provide both. We have like the online reader, and then we definitely have a PDF, and we definitely have an EPUB. And then after that, it is sort of up to the author with what they want to provide for their book. So some have Google Docs versions, some have Word versions, and anytime, my email address is all over these. So anyone that wants to email me and we have the correct CC license, I'm more than happy to share the file types that I have.
Thank you, Bailey. Siri, same question.
So we do provide editable formats for all of the things that are in the open library where the license is appropriate for it. And then for Pressbooks specifically, they are downloadable in a multitude of formats. And Pressbooks also allows the cloning of books that have the specific license that enables cloning. So if someone has it, even if they're not part of the eCampus network, if they have their own instance of Pressbooks, they can actually go in and clone it. And that is an option for them. And then they can edit it based off of their own version of it. And in the metadata itself, it'll also showcase that this is a cloned version of XYZ book. So that is an option for folks. And then if there's ever an instance where there isn't an editable version for whatever reason, we're always happy to be contacted. And we're, as the provider of the tool itself, we're happy to contact whoever the author is and put folks in contact to try and get an editable version or an arrangement worked out between whoever is asking and whoever the creator is.
Awesome. And Justin, same question.
We are a platform that was built with the idea of editable versions being the priority. With our remixer, you can take individual pages or chapters or sections and make your own book. So most of the time people will use us as a repository and then link out to us. So you saw a lot of our users are people who are a repository that use us as the actual house for that. I think the reason for that is that we have even a paragraph by paragraph attribution level. So you can see which paragraph was written by which instructor and came from which source. So the level of detail that we have for attribution and making sure that authors have that correct attribution really is quite unparalleled for, getting an editable version and downloading it. However, we do have downloadable versions of PDFs, and we have a bookstore that prints things, and we also have ability to export as EPUB and things like that if that's something that is desirable, because we do want to be as amenable to whatever practices you have. But we have strong arguments for why our editing platform can maintain the scholarly and credit integrity and the ownership of the materials as best as we can possibly do.
Excellent, thank you. Somebody asked, how do we access these resources? So rather than answer the question, I would invite all of you to put a link into your OER libraries so that people can go peruse what's available to them. And then I think as we're kind of going into the last few minutes of our webinar, someone asked, can you share your elevator pitch on non-cost benefits of using OER? And I think that's like just a perfect way for the three of you to kind of summarize things. So I'll start with Bailey.
Okay, well, first I start talking about the scholarly publishing cycle as a whole and how they have taken advantage of universities for a really long time. And then I go into the open pedagogy and just the freedom that OER provides, the freedom to adapt, the freedom to tailor your class to what your students actually need, and also the open pedagogy project options for students. So the ability to really invest your students in the deep learning, have them choose how they want to participate in a lot of these projects, and the publication opportunities for students. We do lots of open pedagogy projects where we have students participating in creating a final project that they can put on a CV and also that they can use to benefit the students that come after them. So that's a very bird's eye view of the different categories I go into.
Excellent. Siri, your elevator pitch.
I mean, part of it would just be me playing back the recording of what Bailey just said. But I guess maybe in addition to that, I think it's also important to emphasize the importance of belonging and representation in a lot of these educational resources for learners and for students. So getting them involved and allowing educators also to personalize things and customize them for specific contexts. And for different populations of the student group, it's just important to have them there and to have resources that actually accurately represent their lived experiences so that they take ownership and they feel represented in the classroom and in the educational materials that they're using.
Thank you. And Justin, your elevator pitch.
I usually have two different ones depending on the age of the faculty member that I'm talking with. The first one would be for younger faculty. The first time you switch textbooks from edition 1 to edition 2, and then you realize how expensive that was for the students and how much work it was to rebuild your homework, your curriculum, your PowerPoints. Why have a book that changes at a whim of when somebody wants to change something? That's where it started with Delmar Larson. Our founder was realizing that his per class had to switch, and that's what started ChemWiki, with a book that essentially doesn't change. And this is a way to make sure that your focus is on improving how you're teaching, how you're integrating materials, as opposed to how you're adapting every time somebody changes what book you're publishing with. So that's one big part of the younger faculty. For the older faculty, we tend to chat a lot about all the work you've put into the materials you've designed over the years and where that goes. And how nice it would be if those were a part of something that built the community of educators and informed other people, and saving other people the time and effort to find something that's really good. We have a ton of expertise in the community, and being able to develop that community and with your students as well. This all started with Delmar writing open pedagogy assignments back in 2008 with his students to do homework assignments that are building materials for the book that will be used in future generations of students as well as in other classes across the world. So that's kind of the two main thrusts that we chat about a lot, or at least I do.
Thank you. So I want to start off by thanking Bailey, Siri, and Justin for giving of your time today to share out all these interesting ideas. We always have so much to say and share and do. We could almost have a second webinar. But I did think Paula had a really good thought here. It said, we should convince everyone to share versions in the same way. It would help speeding up adaptation in many other contexts, which is still slow. And she thanks all of you as well. I see there's more messages coming in, so I'll let you read them all we have come to the end of our time. And thanks to the audience for coming out and participating in this webinar. We'll see you again.